Right, good evening and welcome to the Monday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Before we continue with the video, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Lots of things going on here on the channel. 7 days a week, unbiased, unhyped content here. Content that you do not maybe necessarily see elsewhere on YouTube. And the reason why I say that is because we often look at the very big, broad, global picture and try to work out how the weather is changing. From a local perspective, you have to look global, and that is certainly something that I strive to do, in a better and better way every time. Every time I produce a video, I'm always trying to improve the standard quality of the content here on the channel. So, yeah, let's get right to it. This is the past 5 days, according to the CDAS 0.5 data. So firmly below average across the UK and Ireland in the last 5 days, and big change coming up. This is the upcoming 5 days according to the GFS ensemble. So we are warming things back up, and it's all thanks to the pattern change, and we're starting to see lower pressure gathering over the UK, over the Atlantic, and we're seeing higher pressure over the continent. Therefore, we're turning our winds, rather than being from a northerly direction like we've seen during the back half of last week. We're seeing southerly winds and much milder temperatures moving northwards here. Speaking of milder temperatures, we have been seeing some record warmth down across the south of France and even down across the north of Africa here, Tunisia, Algeria. We're seeing some very, very hot days for mid-October, as high as 38 Celsius or 100 degrees Fahrenheit in some spots. So very hot conditions down across the north of Africa. Some of that warmth is now spreading into the south of France. And what we are going to see is these temperatures pushing northwards. Obviously, we're not going to be talking about mid-20s. We're not going to be talking about the upper 30s like we see in Africa and southern France. But we will see temperatures probably into the low 20s, believe it or not, across the south of the UK, and even upper teens across the north of the UK, especially with that southerly wind and the help of sunshine. We see that Fern effect taking place. So even along the Murray Coast, for example, wouldn't be surprised. Lossiemouth, Kinloss, areas like this, seeing temperatures as high as 18 degrees Celsius over the next few days, and very, very mild temperatures by night time as well, due to cloud and southerly wind. You're going to see a big change, because the temperatures, like even today, are no great shakes, especially across the south, 10s and 11s. Look at these temperatures up here. Almost some of the warmest temperatures in the UK being observed around the Inverness area. Points just to the north, we've got the 13.2 at Tain, we've got a 13 at Inverness Dalcross, there's 13 at Kinloss. Big change compared to what we've seen this morning. Many folks scraping their car this morning. I think a Boyne dropped below -4 this morning. We've seen England's coldest temperature of the autumn so far in the northeast of England. Temperatures down to -3 at the Redesdale camp in Northumberland. So a fairly chilly old start to the morning. Clear skies, light winds allowed the temperatures to drop off. We're going to see the same again tonight, actually, under clear skies and light winds. But then we're going to see a big change coming up. It's going to turn warmer, but it's also going to turn wetter as well. And this is the upper air setup as we go into the middle and second half of this week. So high pressure dominating the continent, low pressure back towards the northwest. That is a classic positive North Atlantic oscillation. So we're flipping the upper air pattern on its head. And with this type of setup, with southerly winds, with Atlantic weather becoming more dominant once again, we're going to see wetter conditions as a result of that as well. And we did see a system moving across the far south of the UK during the course of last night and through the early portions of today. That brought another little soaking to areas of the south. If we look at the past 24-hour rainfall totals for the UK, you can see once again the focus of heaviest rain across the south of Wales and southwestern portions of England. This is over the last 24 hours or so. But over the next several days, we are going to see a bit of a battle taking place. High pressure kind of slowing down the progress of weather trying to move in off the Atlantic. So you can see here off the ECMWF, we've got a fairly strong southerly wind blowing here. And that, like I say, is going to allow the temperatures upper teens in the south, upper teens probably in the north as well. But over the next few days, we are likely to see areas around the London area, perhaps up to Cambridgeshire, East Anglia. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a 22 Celsius recorded in a few spots over the next few days with this set up here. Low pressure to the west, high pressure to the east, and southerly winds. But notice here that we've got weather systems gathering over to the west here, over Ireland. And what is going to happen, especially as we move through the day tomorrow, that wet weather is going to engulf Ireland and Northern Ireland here. Still dry across the majority of the UK, but clouds going to start to build, I think. So while we may not see glorious sunny skies, we are going to see a notable difference in the feel of the air. Because, you know, over the past few days, we've seen temperatures stuck in single figures. Quite an abrupt change even here at Vogan Weather HQ. Temperatures yesterday no better than 7.9 Celsius. Today, 14 Celsius. So it just goes to show, even in a 24-hour period, that changed. Temperature dropped to 0.5 this morning. So officially yet to hit freezing actually here at my location, while many places have dropped below freezing already. Might get a shot at that tonight before the weather starts to change. But this is as we move into the early hours of Wednesday, that rain spreading across Ireland and Northern Ireland, now moving into Wales, and then it'll eventually spread its way right the way across the UK. Notice here there's a little bit of a clear slot here, seen by the ECM anyway, showing across the bulk of England, eastern England. We may, with a southerly flow, see temperatures even close to 20 Celsius around the Humber estuary, for example. Even the northeast of England, I wouldn't be surprised if we see temperatures close to 20 Celsius over the next several days. And like I say, with a lot of cloud cover, southerly wind, temperatures Tuesday night into Wednesday is going to be very, very mild for the time of year. Could be seeing temperatures stuck in the teens across quite a large area of the country Tuesday night into Wednesday. But look at this here, a very, very sodden day. This is 1800 UTC Wednesday, and that is a fairly wet picture seen by the models. And there's quite a lot of model agreement that it's going to be a particularly wet day during the course of Wednesday. And things get interesting as we move towards the upcoming weekend here, because we've got a fairly active jet stream starting to gather strength. Now, I want to say something with regards to the MJO. You see here that the MJO is moving, that green line represents where the MJO is now starting to become a little bit more amplified over the maritime continent. Now, it's stuck in the null phase at the moment, but it's meant to become a little bit more amplified, moving from phase 3, which is the East Indian Ocean, into phases 4 and 5, which is over the Indonesia region. And when you've got that, you've got a lot of subsidence over the Americas, over the Atlantic basin. And when you've got a lot of subsidence over the Atlantic, you tend to find a much more active pattern across the mid-latitudes. Higher pressure, stronger pressure down towards the subtropics means that you've got a greater collision, if you will, a greater differential between warmth to the south and cold to the north. We're building that cold across the northern hemisphere, and therefore when you've got this regroup of the pressure pattern and higher pressure to the south, lower pressure to the north, you get a much more active jet stream, tends to be more zonal as well. And what we're going to see is that jet stream becoming much, much more active. Let's have a quick look and see, in fact, that jet stream. So we'll look at the Northern Hemisphere view, or the North Atlantic view, should I say. Let's look at the jet stream and see what it's indicating here. So this is off the GFS model. And by the time we rotate and go through the course of this week, you can see here that that jet becomes flatter and stronger as you tighten the gradient between the cold to the north and the warmth to the south. You've got that higher pressure to the south, lower pressure to the north here, much more active jet here, and you've got a bigger temperature difference now starting to develop over eastern North America. We're starting to see a trough and colder air moving into the eastern half of the United States. That's causing that greater temperature difference. That then creates the stronger jet. Look at this jet core by the time we reach Thursday over the central North Atlantic, and then it's moving and progressing its way across the Atlantic towards the UK, and this is the perfect setup for cyclogenesis and deepening of low pressure. If we go back to the overview chart of the ECM model, you can see here that by the time we reach the end of this work week, there's a system now starting to gather strength moving into the UK here, but it's the pressure dropping behind this feature that is really quite notable. So watch this here. It's actually, you would actually think you're paying more attention to this feature here to the west, but this is a developing and deepening system that may actually become quite a problem for the UK as we move towards the Friday time frame. Look at this here, 969 millibars just to the west of Scotland, just to the north of Ireland and Northern Ireland. With a squeeze in isobars, we may see gales or severe gales developing. And is it out with the realm of possibility that this thing gets a name? It wouldn't be surprising, especially if you've got a quite a deepening feature moving on approach to the UK. We'll need to keep an eye quite closely on that one here. Let's have a look at the winds actually, just out of interest, to see what the model is suggesting in terms of wind gusts. So look at this here, 137 kilometers per hour, just to the north of Ireland, just to the west of Scotland here. But notice here that the feature doesn't actually cross over mainland UK. It kind of pivots to the north and then to the northwest here. So something worth monitoring at least anyway. I'm not going to get this hyped up or anything and suggest that it's going to be something that perhaps it isn't going to be. But nonetheless, the ingredients are all coming together here for a stronger jet and the potential for deeper areas of low pressure as we progress through the course of this week here. So an interesting change from what we've seen. Like I said, the Arctic Oscillation is going into positive territory. The North Atlantic Oscillation too is going into positive territory. Let's have a look and see what they look like here. So look, quite a strong positive. Notice that there, and that's your textbook phase 4 and 5 of the MJO. I keep harping on about this MJO because the correlation is sometimes uncanny. How the pattern changes, what goes on in the Indian Ocean and the Western Equatorial Pacific has massive implications on the jet stream, the position of the ridges and the troughs, blocking patterns. And I'm still on board with the idea that this MJO is going to move into the West Pacific, possibly even into the Central Pacific as we move towards the end of the month. And then we watch out for the potential negative Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation returning for the month of November. I'm getting somewhat more confident that is going to potentially take place. But what also is going to be interesting is, do we see much of a change in our temperature anomaly that we've got at the moment? Built up a decent cool anomaly. This is the month to date, so this is through essentially the first half of October, and we're running below average across the UK and Ireland, near continent, Scandinavia as well. But over the next couple of weeks, how much warmth we see, how much it holds in place, will determine the outcome of this anomaly. Do we see it changing from below average to above average during the second half of October? That's going to be interesting to watch out for. Looking at rainfall totals, and let's see what it is indicating here. I think this might be a slightly out of date chart. I think this is an old tab that I had open from last night. So let's look at the ECM and look at the rainfall over the next several days here. So this was during the course of this morning, that feature that moved across the south of the UK here. A little bit of wet, especially up across the far north, dry in between. And as we play through this sequence here, then the rainfall totals really start to gather as we see that rain band moving in from the west and then spreading northwards. So we've got possibly some totals 25 to 50 millimeters in a few spots, especially in high ground areas that are susceptible to the upslope effect of a southerly flow. So we're going to see quite a wet middle portions of the week. Then it'll start to ease off, and then we're going to have our eyes closely monitoring this feature that moves in from the Atlantic as we move towards the end of the working week. Let's real quick just look at the GFS model here and see what it's indicating. So this is the rainfall totals between now and Friday 15 UTC. Let's have a look at the pressure chart here and see what it's indicating with regards to that feature moving towards the weekend here. So play through the loop, high pressure to the east, low pressure to the west. Eventually that low pressure wins the battle. And then it's as we move towards the end of this week, there's that band moving through. But you notice one very, very, very significant difference. there is no deep low on that chart where the ECMWF has a 969 millibar low just to the northwest of the British Isles here. So this is a big difference between the modelling. Let me just have a quick look and see if there is the GFS ensemble. It's not going to show it, I don't think. Keeping our eyes closely fixed on this here feature. Let's play through the next several days. Notice here the low pressure up towards Iceland, higher pressure to the south. That's your textbook positive NAO. And that had been highlighted here for quite some time, that we would see this flip around from deep negative to the strong positive. Yeah, it looks as if even the GFS, by the time we reach Friday of this week here, while the ECM has a deep low just the northwest, that deep low is actually up towards Iceland. So quite a big discrepancy between ECM and the GFS regarding the end of the week outcome. So we'll watch this and keep monitoring it as we go forward. Looking at finally the pressure pattern over the next several days. So this is the upcoming 5 days. Low to the west, high to the east here, southerly flow, play through the loop here. You continue to see that strong area of high pressure dominating the continent, including the majority of the UK. If you notice here, this is the 6 to 10 days. So this is the period 19th through the 24th. Low pressure up towards Iceland here. And then it looks as if higher pressure seen by the GFS ensemble tries to build over more of the UK. Actually dries things out as well here, if you notice. You look at the precipitation anomalies. It goes from the wet upcoming 7 days and in through the next 10 or so. And then we see a drying out process taking place. Temperature anomaly wise, we are seeing the removal of that cold that we've seen in recent times to something milder. So this is the upcoming 5 days. This is the period 5 through 9, 6 to 10. That's quite a warm overall idea, and that would, in my opinion anyway, remove a lot of this cold anomaly that we've got going at the moment. So we'll watch and see what happens over the next wee while or so. But certainly that there, by the way, with this pressure pattern builder, is stronger, higher pressure over the majority of the UK would indicate a phase 6 MJO. And if you look back at the MJO real quick, if I can find it, just bear with a second here. Let's look at the MJO. So it's going into phases 3, 4, and 5, mild phases. But notice it's actually heading towards phases 6. And that is a blocky pattern for the UK and Ireland. And then it is possibly going to rotate through phases 7, 8, and 1 as we move towards the end of the month. And then that will set up potentially the return of a negative NAO blocking to the north and a colder November situation developing. So we'll watch this space as we go forward. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time with more. Have a great rest of your Monday evening. Bye for now.